crossroads. President Ruto's regime is under siege, not just from hashtags like Ruto must go, but from a population asking, where is our money? They're asking, where's the justice? Where's the future? Tonight we are here to unpack these facts, of course, and I'm here with two gentlemen. The first one is Eric Naibei, joining us for this conversation. Eric Naibei is an advocate of the High Court. He's joining us for this conversation. Thank you so much, Eric, for finding time to join us for this conversation. And of course, we also have Justice Zakude Jura, who is also a legal expert, an expert in governance and economy, joining us for this conversation. Thank you so much, Justice Jura, for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you very much, Eugene. We are glad to be here.
Yes. Yeah. How was your week? Maybe in 2 words, Eric?
My week was great.
Yes.
I'm glad that we are here, despite the challenges you've mentioned that we are facing as a nation.
Yes.
We are enduring and we are surviving.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kwach, and the entire GBS fraternity for bringing us on board to discuss issues that are pertinent to the people of Kenya, especially at such a critical moment that people are indeed asking so many questions regarding governance, regarding their future, especially the demographic group referred to as the Gen Z. They are asking pertinent questions, and indeed we are here to unpack the same.
Indeed. Can this government survive the storm it's soon, or is the breaking point already here? That is also a question that we tend to answer through this conversation. Well, stay put. 21144 is our SMS line. And of course, you can find us in various social media platforms through GBS TV Africa at Eugene Ochieng Kwach or Kwach Official. Well, we begin this conversation. And Eric, let me start with you. Before we begin the main issues, of course, let's talk a bit about AU. The last time that you were here, was before the election, the AU election. But now we are here after the AU election. What is your thought about Raila's failure to clinch the AU seat? Is it because of Ruto's misdoing, as many people believe? Could it be a blunder by Raila Odinga's team? What actually happened? Maybe we could be asking that what really broke or never started in the beginning?
Thank you, Eugene. When we were here last time, we were very optimistic that this seat was coming to Kenya. Unfortunately, it went the way it did. And in my opinion, several factors contributed to the failure that we saw. One of them being a betrayal by countries that we thought as Kenya would back our candidate. But I think the most glaring one and the most disturbing one is the reality that it looks like our president became a baggage to Raila Odinga's candidature. Given the zeal, the energy that he put in, and these other countries, these presidents, those who are voting, could be able to read and see the motive behind the effort, the extra effort that the Kenyan government was putting into this. It looked like we were there to try and manage our local politics by doing away with Raila Odinga through that position. So it could have contributed, and here we are. We are back to now where we used to be in 2023, and I think we are picking up from the NADCO process. Yeah, we are here.
Sir, was it Kenya's maybe diplomatic blunders that saw Raila lose the AUC elections? Was it Raila's blunder?
I think this is not something we can put to Raila, this blunder, because Raila was a candidate for the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
And so we expected everyone, including the presidency, all the institutions that enjoys international relations, to play in this particular diplomatic shuttle to ensure that at the end of the day, Raila Odinga, who is a Kenyan candidate and an African son, get the seat. However, that didn't take place because of some factors that my senior Naibei has actually enumerated. But again, we are to be blamed in a way as well, because we saw towards the eve of that particular election, there were some conflicts in the neighboring countries that took place and actually are still ongoing.
Yes.
And we could see our president playing an active role in trying to address issues regarding those particular conflicts.
Yes.
So this perhaps did not go well with the neighboring countries. At some point, our president who stated that he had actually spoken with the Prime Minister Macron. There was some undertones of disgruntlement that came from the neighboring countries. South Africa, in some way, was not comfortable with that. So for me, this one played a part, and now these presidents were now asked to vote between Raila Odinga and the other two candidates that were running against him. Of course, there was also the questions of the Francophones, language playing a role, and countries voting as far as their languages were concerned, issues of religion. Our candidate was disenfranchised alongside those lines.
Okay.
So it is not something that I can say was the mistake of our candidate. Our candidate is an enigma that is respected locally and internationally. And had he taken this as his sole role and do this campaign himself
Yes.
without the involvement of the president,
Yes.
I don't think he would have lost this election.
Okay. So to some extent, it was the involvement of the President Ruto, just as Naibe has actually put it. Well, thank you so much. Let's begin the conversation that we are here for tonight. And let me begin with you, Naibe, because President Ruto had his agenda when he was coming to power. And some of actually the issues that were in his agenda was to lift the hustlers with homes. It was actually, he then came with hailing the sick with a shift, that is Social Health Insurance Fund. And actually, he also promised to slay the corruption dragon. We have seen billions still vanishing. And the former president talked about 2 billion being lost a day. We have experienced 73 abductions as we speak since June 2024. And actually, still some of these allies of President Ruto accused of doing this still walk free. Well, a question is this regime falling? What is not happening? What really happened from the promises of the president to where we have found ourselves?
What I will say is that the president and his government is failing terribly in light of the promises they made, because you saw that recent research that showed that out of the 271 election campaign pledges in the UDA manifesto and what the president expressly promised Kenyans, so far only 14 have been fulfilled.
Yes.
And that translates to about 5%. If you are to do an exam and you are to score 5 out of 100, that is an embarrassing failure. And we are already almost 2.5 years into the term that is supposed to serve, the 5-year term. We are more than 2 years, we are midway. We are at 5%, so you can imagine the performance. If it is to improve, I'm not sure whether the president will still be able to fulfill all the campaign pledges. There are those he has already broken, like the pledge he made to deal with abductions and to ensure that they don't occur. So many broken promises. What I can say is the president always has a chance to redeem himself. Provided he's still in office, he still has the resources and the capacity. But is he willing to listen? Is he willing to hear Kenyans speak? In my opinion, he is not listening and he's not hearing. All he's concerned with at the moment is how to recapture the seat in 2027. No wonder we are now in a political mood. We are campaigning. Political parties are being launched every week, every other day. You are seeing political alignments, and it is led by the president himself. I can't blame the rest of the politicians. It is him who sets the political tone in the country. It is the president, the head of the executive, who sets the tone and the pace at which things move. So the fact that we are now seriously discussing who should succeed him and who should support him and which strategies is he going to use to recapture the seat it is very unfortunate because it means for the remaining 2 years, we may not have time to achieve those goals which were set down in that UDA manifesto, which they branded it so well.
Yes.
They call it better.
Okay. Better.
Bottom-up economic transformation agenda.
Yes.
It was something colorful, something attractive, something good, but unfortunately, it is just on paper.
Okay. Before I come about the bottom-up economic agenda, because I think we talked about it way back before the president came into power. But let me just ask you, because we've talked about the abductions, some of the issues actually that president said that he will not actually allow in his government. Well, we have had, and we understand that the president, the current president, and the former president actually had dodged ICC over 2007's bloodbath. Now we have new abductions. Is it possible that the president, now speaking as a lawyer, is it possible that the president, after his presidency, maybe to be made accountable for what happened in 2007 and even during his term as a president?
Yes, it is still possible because the ICC cases that were terminated in 2016 against the then deputy president, who is now the president, they were terminated on largely technical grounds of technical grounds and on reasons that we would not say the cases were conclusively heard and determined. So if new evidence is to be presented before ICC, those cases can still be resuscitated. As far as the abductions are concerned, the president can still be held accountable through the ICC system once he's out of office. So all is not lost, but the problem is, do we really have to get to that point? Because this is a president who really campaigned on the platform that he wanted to do away with abductions, because at that time it was really bad during Uhuru's time. However, 2 years into his regime, it has worsened. I think he is almost surpassing the record set by Uhuru Kenyatta. So we should be talking about a president who came in promising to do away with it and to ensure that rule of law prevails, that Kenyans are protected, and that he uses the sword and the executive authority to protect Kenyans and not to slash them or to cut them. We are seeing the opposite, and yes, to answer your question, he can be held accountable.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mheshimiwa Justice, let me just bring you in, but of course on the issue of economy generally, because it is an issue that has been discussed. We came with better. There was the bottom-up economic agenda, the transformation that actually the president came up with, and we have all these things. When you look at it, this Ruto's economic vision, is it salvageable, or is it built actually to break Kenya? Going forward, what do you think about it?
Well, Mr. Eugene, just before I come to what you're asking, let me weigh in on what Senior has actually contributed on. You know, I don't want to come here to defend the government. At the same time, I'm not here to equally point out the greatest undoings of the government. Because this behavior by Kenyans to try to hold presidents that they elect accountable after election and trying to forget about their responsibility at the ballot is something that we need to shun with the strongest words possible. It is high time that the people of Kenya appreciate and underscore the fact that they need to be accountable at the ballot. So that when you are going to vote at the ballot, you know what the Constitution says. And if you don't know, we have so many organizations that tend to do civic education. So at no point should anybody try to feign ignorance of the law. We know. So if we over-expect from an individual, then we also have to indicate the same expectation at the ballot. We will not have a situation where you elect for us leaders, they get to the presidency, and when now they bring up irrational decisions regarding economy, regarding governance, you want them to be you want people to come and help you to host them. Like now they are trying to bring Raila on board to help them host President Ruto. That is far-fetched, and what I think is correct is that let them go and do that at the ballot if they have the power to do so. But let them not use people that they have rejected at the ballot to now try to boomerang and try now to get them out and get the person that they elected. You must finish the term with the person you elected. Once you finish the term with them, if you want to reconsider, go back on the ballot and do what? And do the reconsideration. So at that point, I don't want to blame the government. I'm blaming the people that voted that particular government.
Okay.
Regarding economy that you've asked, I think right now part of the engine that is running the economy of this country includes some of the experts that the ODM party got into the government. And I want to say, without a iota of doubt, that part of the experts that we got into the government are doing something about this economy. We saw C.S. Mbadi going to try to do public participation, where he goes himself in person at the Juvanji Garden to get public views before taking the finance bill to the government, to Parliament, to be discussed again, and at the same time be passed for purposes of bringing some of the policies on board. So that is a good engagement, which we did not have before. You know, part of the issues that Gen Zs brought on board were that the government were unilaterally getting policies into Parliament, paying parliamentarians to pass, and then bringing them back to people without consulting them. But this time, I think we have seen some semblance of public participation that is ongoing, which is so good. Number two, they have also done a cross-check of what brought the problem in the former finance bill before they bring in the new finance bill for tabling in Parliament. So I think those are some of the good reforms that we have seen. And there is this issue of taxing, which again is a key function when you want to run economy. Tax is a source of revenue that the government uses anytime. And everybody that gets elected will require taxation to be done for such a person to run government. So we cannot run away from it and tell Kenyans that, you know, you are not going to pay tax, so elect me to be the president.
Yes.
We will still need people to pay taxes so that the debts that we owe other countries and other corporations can be paid off.
Okay. I wish you just to speak about a bit about Kenya's ballooning public debt, actually, coupled with IMF and World Bank pressures that actually are affecting the government's ability to deliver its bottom-up economic agenda, economic transformation agenda. I don't know whether that is the case. Are these pressures contributing, and maybe what political risks does this pose for President Ruto's administration?
It is true that there's some debt that William Ruto inherited when he got into the office, and at the same time, he cannot run the country without bringing some, going to borrow.
Yes.
But now the question borders around the irrationalities, or rather rationalities, surrounding those borrowings that we do.
Yeah.
But again, recently, the Central Bank of Kenya, there were appointments that were made called that committee that was set up that tries to discuss issues, fiscal policies, as well as monetary policies. And I have to admit that to date, they are really doing good work. And just before we get very far, we will be seeing some of the recommendations they are bringing to try to revolutionize our debt and how we can use the money we have and how, as a country, we can live within our budget and at the same time be able to pay the debts that we owe. But that notwithstanding, it is a long-term strategy that we need so that in 2032 and beyond, we be told as a country whether we are able to live within our means sufficiently without borrowing from outside. Or if we are to borrow, what are some of the gaps that we need to fill so that we borrow and we use them for the purposes they are borrowed and not to be channeled in other things that do not go well with the interest of Kenyans.
Thank you so much, Mawakili, for that conversation. Of course, we're taking a quick short break, but of course, this conversation is here to make you understand some of these issues that actually are happening and affecting our country. Well, the conversation is just as says that even the Mwananchi needs to be accountable. Before the government becomes accountable, it is important for them to become accountable while voting. Well, that is a conversation that we are going on with. When we come back, 2144 is our SMS line. Continue conversing with us.
What is always before you but can't be seen?
Kudiscover talent
Kudiscover. Ulijuangaje like unaweza imba like yeah.
Kini Trace Jumi Kipchoge kwa ngoma na mfala wanani dis na wanabonga kwa ngoma mafan jo ananipenda ndo nazidi kwa roga wenye walenjaribu mazee walishachoka na nikozabe meditation naendelesha generation niliofanya
Wewe at 1 year old ulikuwa unafanya nini? You're feeling the vibe. Ulitoa a few days ago, unaweza taka utuambie like ulikuwa unafikiria nini when you came up with the lyrics? Yeah.
So I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing. And if you're tryna win, you can be on my team. Yeah, so I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing.
You feel like you're young at heart, I'm an old soul. If you could only listen to one singer or band for the rest of your life, who will you choose?
Welcome to
Fun
Dance Class! Today we will continue learning about Jingle Bell Rock. Friends, first you cross your arm and put it on top of your head, and as you go in left side, you open it, then you come back to your place.
And then you make your leg 90 degrees, and then as you put your legs until 90 degrees, you need to jump a bit. 1, 2. Then as you jump a bit, you need to stretch your hands downwards.
Everywhere GBS.
Thank you so much for joining us back to the Insight. Well, we still have the two lawyers here with us, and of course we have Eric Naibei, we have Justus, and we're continuing with the conversation. Eric, let me come to you because we have a lot of issues actually that we're talking about. And one of the issues that have been talked about so much is the role of the legislature or the legislative arm of the government in all these things, all these issues actually. Let me get your view, because for the longest time actually, the parliament has been seen as just as a rubber stamp to what the government, or what the executive actually has come up with. Is that the case? And then what does the future look like for our puppets?
Thank you.
And to us, generally.
Before I answer that, I just wanted to clarify a point from what he submitted on. To the extent that the ODM donated experts to the government, I think it is not lost on us that the occasion that presented itself to enable the president to incorporate ODM was the Gen Z demonstrations, the youth uprising that happened in June last year. And we have not forgotten that it is out of that youth uprising that Raila Odinga's political camp tacitly took advantage and came in to rescue a government that was sinking. Whether that is morally right or not, it is something that Kenyans will still continue to judge. Because were it not for the move by Raila Odinga to allow, if at all it is true that he just allowed and donated experts to rescue this government, we would not be having this government. And again, you ask yourself now, was it in the best interest of Kenyans that we save William Ruto and this government, or was it better we do away with the president and his government and try and start from somewhere as Kenyans? That is debatable.
Yes, Mr.
But
just
yes.
before you go further from what you've said, let me just ask you, pose a question on what you've said. How would Kenya be looking if President Ruto did not bring Raila on board through a broad-based government? Who would have been, what would have happened? What are some of the situations actually that we would have found ourselves in? Was the president going to resign? Was Gachagua going to take over? What will be Kenya looking like? What if Gachagua took over? How generally? I have a lot of questions actually on the same, but maybe if you can answer
I
some.
don't want to do guesswork, but I want to assume that maybe the protest would have persisted, because that act of toning down political temperatures at the level of those key political coalitions, it actually helped, because Raila Odinga's constituency now had to tone down. Even the youth who are aligned to Raila Odinga had to tone down. So it became easier for the president to manage demonstrations, especially in the city, and those that were typically moved or supported by the Gen Z movement completely. So I want to imagine that if
So Kenya is more stable.
Kenya is more stable.
And then why is it that? How is it?
It is
that
stable,
Raila
but
took
we also don't want to assume that we are stable and we are okay, because we are still saying Ruto must go. We are still paying taxes. We are still enduring abductions, etc. So there are chances, if demonstrations were to continue,
Yes.
probably the president would be prevailed upon to resign. And we would maybe find ourselves in chaos, maybe for 2 or 3 years, trying to rebuild our nation, the way we've seen countries like Sudan struggling with conflict. So
was that the better way to
So
go?
I don't want to conclude,
Yes.
but in my opinion, the fact that Raila Odinga donated
Yes.
these people, experts, to government,
Yes.
it doesn't in itself mean that he came out to rescue Kenyans, but he came to assist the president hold on to power.
Okay.
I don't perceive it as an act that was in the best interest of Kenyans.
Okay.
Rather, it was in the best interest of the political class.
Okay.
It served the president. It helped the president to get grip of power.
Okay. We are going to answer the question on parliament. Let me just ask you, Justice. Raila Odinga took advantage of Gen Z protest, and is now reaping big from the Gen Z protest, from the bloodbath. We have so many Gen Zs actually who were killed actually on the streets. Some of them have been adapted, much evil happening from this government, but still Raila is still supporting this government. Why did, let me just ask you, I know you're not in government, what could have made Raila to take advantage of the Gen Z protest?
I don't think it is proper to ask why Raila took advantage of anything, because I've heard what Senior is speaking here. Those are just statements that are based on propositions and conjectures, and they do not have any proof. But that could appear like a courtroom statement, but even politically, you know, we cannot try to talk about a group that did not have leaders. A group that had no a leader they could front to come to the negotiation table and state clearly what they wanted. And if they did, at any point they did not even pinpoint that this is the person we want to lead us from point X to point Y. Secondly, we are a country that has a constitution, which is whose foundation we rely on and bind us all. When these people were doing protest and the end goal was to get Ruto out of power, the question that anyone would ask, which you have asked and you've not been answered, is then what? You get Ruto out of power, then what? What is next? To have Gachagua as the next president? And are you saying Gachagua would have served the country better than where Ruto had placed it? The answer will certainly be no. So what Raila did, Raila has always been a statesman. And in such crisis, you need people who sober up and people who can come and give solutions, not to try to create more problems. Because if you're saying you want our country to go down into ashes so that somebody can get out of power, then I don't think that is in the best interest of our republic and even public at large. And it comes back to what I was saying, that we are not going to allow people who irrationally walk into the voting booths, make wrong decisions,
Yes.
then they come back and call individuals they didn't vote to come and help them host the government.
Yes.
That era must come behind us.
Okay.
It must go behind us.
Okay. Sir, we were talking about parliament. I don't know whether you'd want to revert, but we're talking about parliament. Because in all this, parliament sits at the heart of it to this extent. When we had the Gen Z protest, it was because of the tax bills that was actually passed by the parliament. And the parliament has been known recently to be rubber stamping what Ruto and his government wants. Haiti troops, we talk about tax bills, even despite court slaps. It's like he wore checks and balances. Well, legally speaking, or rather legally, can MPs break free from this, from doing doing the president's work? How is the constitution putting all this?
Constitutionally, Parliament should be independent because its mandate is very independent from that of the executive, and it is very possible in law for Parliament to operate without being coerced or being controlled by the executive. Because the roles of Parliament are supposed to be very clear, making law and being an oversight over the rest of the arms of government, the judiciary and the executive. But as you've said, our Parliament has not lived up to that expectation, and the height of it, I think, was demonstrated last year when they passed that infamous finance bill.
Yes.
They passed it. They were very happy. They defended it even in Parliament until the youth invaded it. And then shortly thereafter, when the president withdrew it,
Yes.
they were there again clapping and even smiling and applauding the president for withdrawing it. Yet they had the chance to oppose it in Parliament.
Okay.
So this is a Parliament that is captured. It is always captured. It has always been captured, I think, even from the regime of Uhuru Kenyatta to this regime of William Ruto. It is captured. It is difficult even for now for us to tell whether we still have an opposition wing in Parliament, or whether we have whether the leader of majority and the leader of minority are different persons in Parliament. So we have a Parliament. Unfortunately, we have a Parliament that works and operates under the whims of the president. And probably the main reason they do that is because most of them are corrupt. If they are to be independent, through the same machinery that the executive arm of government has, they can still be pursued and they can still be intimidated into towing the line. So it is unfortunate that we have a Parliament, but we don't have legislators who are able to stand firm and to defend Kenyans.
Is it the same case with judiciary? Because judiciary right now, it's like it is also not quite stable. As we can
to a large extent, I think the judiciary has tried in terms of asserting its independence, because we can see that, we can gauge that through the decisions they keep making. Sometimes they favor government, sometimes, and most of the time, the judiciary is in the business of reversing government decisions which are not legal. And to me, that is the best expression of independence and the ability to operate within what the law has placed them as judges and as the judiciary. There are perceptions out here about specific judges, specific courts, like now we are talking about the Supreme Court. There are views about how the CJ led by Martha Koome has conducted herself in the office up to now. There are contradicting views among Kenyans and especially members of the legal profession.
Yes.
There are those who believe that she has not asserted her independence properly as a CJ. She has not come out firm to defend the judiciary and to speak on things that matter. When her voice matters, she has not been heard speaking. Unfortunately, we compare her to the predecessor,
Yes.
the CJ Emeritus Maraga,
Yes.
who did so well,
Yes.
who set a new standard. And I think we are yet to see the best of Martha Koome. We are yet to see what she can do better than what Maraga did.
Yes.
So as far as the judiciary is concerned, I think there is a weak, there are some fault lines and there are weak points,
Yes.
which I may not attribute to interference by the executive. I think it is about leadership in the judiciary.
Thank you so much. I want us to speak about Ruto's or the regime survival. I know you have maybe 2 cents on what he has actually said on maybe judiciary and the legislature, but even as you get to answer that, I want us to talk about Ruto's, because Ruto's regime is under siege. X is actually roaring, Ruto must go, Ruto must go. So I would wish, because to have one legal fix and one policy fix, maybe you could talk about the legal perspective, you could talk about the policy part, and then get to know what's the lifeline actually to pull Kenya back from the edge, or maybe are we gone too far? And generally, what's for Ruto?
First and foremost, let me agree with Learned Counsel that we've had some, show of interference by the National Assembly coming from the executive. What I would term the invisible hands of the executive deeply,
Yes.
playing in the National Assembly. And most of the time when we expect to make independent decisions
Yes.
that speak to the interest of Kenyans, they rarely do the same. And that I agree. We have seen this in so many instances. When certain bills come which have bearing with the national government, and even executive in particular,
Yes.
the MPs are very vocal in terms of advancing such bills. But when there are bills that are privately sponsored, bills that come through petitions from members of the public, that could be having some wide effect in terms of changing lives of Kenyans,
Yes.
we rarely see them advocating towards the advancement of such bills. So I do agree that we are still demanding to see some fundamental change in the conduct of members of parliament. But again, it goes back to Wanjiku, it goes back to the people of Kenya to see who passes the test that they set in terms of leadership, in terms of integrity, as far as legislation is concerned. I can't agree more regarding what he has stated in terms of the judiciary. Judiciary, to some extent, has indeed asserted its independence. And what we currently see, the discussions around the judiciary, are issues leadership as opposed to decisional independence that they have always shown to the people of Kenya. Regarding the question you've asked, whether this regime is unstable or not, I said I'm not coming here to defend government because I'm not in that government. I belong to opposition party.
Yes.
And we are yet to get direction from our party leader regarding...
We will talk about one policy fix, actually. Yeah. What ought to be done? We will talk about the legal perspective.
You want me to
Your
ask...
expertise to government.
Yeah, your
What
expertise,
advice?
yeah.
Oh, what ought to be done
Yes,
in terms
policy-wise.
of policies? Yes, I think right now we have the issue of health that is really a matter that demands the attention of the government to come and sit down with the health experts and find long-lasting solutions. Because this solution is long overdue because people of Kenya are suffering. When you see people walking into public hospitals and they don't get services because the insurance that they expect the government to be fully in charge of and to be efficient is not working, then it is something that demands quick attention of government. So that is one area that I believe the government really needs to rush and address. Otherwise, it is a danger lurking, and it will definitely hit back if they don't address it. Secondly, the Gen Zs actually revolutionized this country in terms of holding the executive and even leaders, all of them, accountable. So that if you don't want to be accountable to the people that you lead, if you don't want to listen to them, then again, you are getting back to the office is quite uncertain, because we don't know how Gen Zs are going to behave when the elections reaches. So people have to be very speculative of such things that are likely to happen later and make rational decisions now that is in the best interest of those people.
Mr. Lebe.
On legal fix, let me start with what we don't need. We don't require as Kenyans a constitutional amendment or referendum to create new positions. We've had proposals from the likes of Samson Cherargei saying that we should amend the constitution to create a position for the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, to be a Prime Minister again. I don't think we need that. What we need, I think, is to reverse and to abolish the laws that were enacted in the first, I think the first and the second year of this regime, to put in place the university funding model, which has proved to be very difficult. And then, as he said about the health sector, there are these laws that we passed that did away with NHIF. I think we need to go back there if I was to be asked. We need to concentrate on making the business environment smooth and easy for Kenyans, so that Kenyans at the bottom can be able to trade and do business well, and that means we should not be interfering with tax laws every year. I think we are now in that stage of coming up with we are in that budget cycle again, where very soon we will have a finance bill. Let's not interfere with our tax regime. Let's maintain and, if possible, relieve Kenyans of the burdens, because the pay slip is really overburdened. And we need, Kenyans just need to survive. We just want an environment where we can do business and make profit, where we can work and earn proportionately to the effort we put in, and where we can live in peace, in good health. So if the government can concentrate its efforts and even resources in ensuring that, I don't think we also need mega projects, because presidents are obsessed with running with one project at the expense of basic needs, at the expense of ensuring that Kenyans get a decent life, where we can get shelter, food, clothes, roofs over our heads, and shoes. We don't need mega projects. We just want a smooth, well-running economy. So that is my take about what we need, and I don't think we need radical legal reforms. We have a good constitution, we have good laws, and we are good as a nation.
Thank you. That is Naibei's take, and of course also Jura spoke earlier, and of course his policy fix, and of course his legal fix. What ought to be done by this government if they are to survive? Well, we are coming back with a bit of politics, and of course we'll be talking about Gachagua more, and of course the opposition. But we're taking a quick short break, and we'll be right back in a minute.
What is the biggest challenge that you face as an aspiring filmmaker?
First biggest challenge is still financial. Finance problem. Especially as young filmmakers, you're trying to navigate something for the first time, and there is a lot of pressure from the people in the game.
You people, you don't take it like let's say it's not like a challenge,
it comes all round.
Like he's just challenging you to do better. Like you try to improve what you feel like you're not doing it in the right way.
This pressure comes with the challenge. First and foremost is the resources. is the finance that comes with it, because at the end of the day, as long as you're trying to create films, you're trying to improve your quality with time. Because at the end of the day, you see, competition is, for example, just in the music industry. You know, you might find yourself being in the industry and you quit. Not that you can't do it, not that you can't see or you're not seeing or taking it as a challenge, as something to boost you up. But sometimes it can come and overweight. The challenge becomes too hard to bear.
I want us to go to the Word of God, the book of Isaiah, and then we continue. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 38, whatever we have read is just a story, a true story of a man of God. And a man of God that has walked before God, where there is no hope. I don't know whether you have reached a position whereby you don't know from here, who should I go to? But my topic today is that there is hope in God.
Everywhere GBS.
Thank you so much and welcome back to this conversation, The Insight. Well, Kenya's opposition has been forming a new coalition to challenge President William Ruto, bringing together leaders like Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, Eugene Wamalwa, and others, which actually forming a new coalition. However, many of these leaders, as we know, have presidential ambitions. And of course, we also have Martha Karua, who launched the People's Liberation Party yesterday, also have as political presidential ambitions. So, which is actually raising questions about the unity within the coalition. With Raila Odinga's AU bid unsuccessful, some in the opposition have invited him to join them, but it's unclear whether they will support him for the presidency or expect him to back another candidate. Well, there's a lot to this. And permit me just to ask you, Naibe, as we begin with you, what is truly the agenda of the opposition? Because this is a question that has been asked by President Ruto, that we have these people wanatangamana kunitoa, but they do not really have an agenda. Is that the case? And also, these people having presidential ambitions, what will happen? Will we see another moment where the opposition will divide themselves and let President Ruto give him an easy ride to the presidency? What happens? What do you think?
Thank you for the question. Well, I agree with you to the extent that that question has been posed by the president himself, asking why, what is the agenda? But I think that is obvious. Normally, the agenda of any individual in the opposition is to remove the one in government. That is agenda number one, because for you to even come and do what you intend to do for Kenyans,
yes,
you have to first find a strategy to remove whoever is in regime,
yes,
or rather to ensure that whoever is in regime doesn't recapture the seat.
Okay.
So I think at the moment the agenda should be, I don't know whether that is the agenda, because I don't speak for the opposition, and I don't speak for government. But I believe the agenda is to craft the best formula to remove William Ruto through the ballot in 2027. I believe that they are not crafting any agenda to remove him unconstitutionally before 2027. And to the extent that they are coming together as presidential hopefuls, I think that has been happening before. It is not the first time. All of them would want to bargain, to put their best foot forward, and to say, I'm the best. Then at the end of the day, I think there will be realignments. There are those who will concede and support the rest. There are those who are still unsure, like the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. He still has a case in court which is yet to be concluded. But he's still there presenting himself, not clearly saying whether he's vying or not, but he's there. So we have these faces, and I like the fact that they are coming in to fill a gap that has been left by Raila Odinga, who has tiptoed back to government in his usual style, because from 1997, that is what Raila has been doing.
And I was just wondering, they're not promising Raila, they're asking him. If Raila wants to be the president, then he should join them. The same people who actually said that Raila is unacceptable anywhere by the people of the Central. I don't know what is the strategy. Why would they want Raila? Just before I give a chance to...
You know, all of us Kenyans know the strength and the strengths and the weaknesses of these politicians. And even the leaders from the Central that we are talking about, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, he knows the abilities and what Raila can do. And the fact that I think he said in KTN, he intimated that they could even rally Mount Kenya to support Raila Odinga if he chooses to vie.
Is that possible?
It is possible. Nothing is impossible in Kenya, because we've seen these people mixing and separating year in, year out. They are not permanent enemies in politics. That is what the saying goes. So it is possible, and it is possible for all these opposition politicians to still rally behind Raila Odinga, if that is the vehicle, if that is the route that will help them deal with William Ruto. I think at the moment, all of them are trying to court Raila Odinga to their side, knowing that the chances of Raila Odinga himself declaring that he is interested in the seat are minimal, and also knowing that he still has a huge block of Kenyans following him. Whether that strategy will succeed or not, we will wait and see.
Yes, I have so many questions actually, Justice, but I'm just wondering, Kalonzo Musyoka joined Rigathi Gachagua so that he could be the president, and that has been his ambition. We also have all these presidential hopefuls. What happens, and actually what is the strategy of the opposition, which he says that are now filling the shoes of Raila Odinga, which I don't know whether that is possible?
I think Mr. Naibe should come out of his hideout and speak for Munyoro instead of lying that he doesn't belong to opposition nor government. Because what he has been speaking here is trying to advance the agenda of Munyoro, you know, including coming on board to castigate Raila Odinga. You know, the truth of the matter is this. What you saw about parties being launched, people walking here and there, those are games of musical chairs. They are usual games that we see political animals normally do to try to survive within the cage of politics. And that is what we are seeing right now. But since they know pretty well that they cannot survive, they cannot be elected, in that group, none of them can become president. None of them. You will see at the right time some of them decamping from that very camp that they tend to galvanize themselves around today. Tomorrow you'll see them, some of them, coming to the side that Raila will support. Secondly, we are not going to buy this promise that Raila Odinga come this side time we are going to support you. This one is one of the nonsense we are not going to buy, because the Mount Kenya side had time and opportunity to elect Raila Odinga. And even the president of the country then told them to vote Raila, and he really campaigned for Raila to the extent he could. But still, they felt that this guy deserved to be in Bondo. So now that Raila decided to keep quiet, they are inviting Raila to come to their side, and including asking Raila to run for presidency so that they support him. That is one check that I cannot walk with to a bank and check, because you will find that check coming out as still check. Because that is what Mount Kenya is. They can never vote Raila Odinga. So this time they have to eat their humbled pie. They have first to finish the race with the person they elected, and if they want to elect a different person, let them now go back and vote using brains, using the necessary guideline that is supposed to be used when electing leaders. Not emotions and tribal cards.
One question people are asking, all these people are presidential hopefuls. Martha Karua said it. It is either she's being supported, she can work with the Raila, yes, but only when she's being supported.
Eugene, even you can be a presidential hopeful. Tomorrow you can decide that you want to launch your campaign, even political party. A comrade by the name Morara just formed his political party the other time. And he was even invited in this particular launching as part of the political party leaders who needed to be there to grace.
Presidential hopeful.
Yes, and they are all presidential hopeful.
Yes.
But nothing is further from the truth that if you take that team and give them Ruto, Ruto will still emerge winner. Because there is no serious candidate there. And that is why they are yearning to have Raila in their camp so that they can have a formidable team to face Ruto. But we are saying, let us first sort them in telling them to allow the gentleman they elected to finish his term. The rest we will deal with. Like I told you, our party leader is yet to give us his direction in terms of which route we are taking. Whether we are going to take a constitutional moment, whether Raila Odinga is going to tell us he's running, we will support him, and we are ready to support him. If he takes us to government, we will go to that government, because we are not going to take responsibility on behalf of people who led to who led to that result that now we are being asked to take a responsibility of.
Thank you so much. Mr. Naibe, as you also give up you can give us your parting shot as you maybe revert to some.
Okay, I just wanted to maybe to clarify one point, because it looks like all of us agree that William Ruto is not good, is not the president we all wanted or we want. But you can't say that because a certain section of Kenyans supported him, let us all suffer. You know, it is not logical that we let's suffer until we see, you know.
Because you've used the numbers to bulldoze others, and you always say, with your number, nobody can become president without your number coming into the same basket. So this time you felt punishing Raila and sending him Bondo to bury him politically. But the gentleman has refused to die.
Support of William Ruto.
We risk losing sight of the antelope because of a squirrel. Right now, I think the government and the system is really working hard to galvanize Kenyans to believe that it is now Mount Kenya versus the rest of Kenyans. And now that is how we will find ourselves, people who have always wanted good governance, supporting William Ruto just because we are trying to block Mount Kenya from taking control of government. That I don't think is the best we can do. But as a parting shot, let me say the buck still stops at the president's dock. He is still in charge, and if he cares enough, the president should listen to Kenyans. There is a story in the Bible about a man called Balaam, who really considered himself a man of God. At some point, he refused to listen to the voice of God, and greed took over him. He was on his way using a donkey, and at some point, the donkey refused to move. He beat the donkey several times until the donkey spoke. And later on, he met his punishment because he died in a war that happened against Israelites at that time. If the president cannot listen to what Kenyans are saying, because there is a saying that the voice of the people is the voice of God. If Kenyans are constantly complaining about his policies, the housing levy, the issues of the university funding model, the health, etc. If he cannot listen to that, there is a whip that awaits him. I don't know whether it is in 2027, but there is a punishment that he will face. So let the president take charge.
Justice.
Yes, on my part, we are yet to get direction from our party leader. That is what will guide us moving forward. If Raila stands for president, we are ready to support him. If he takes us to the government, like so far we have our experts right there. Some of us, we are equal experts. If we are told to go and help Ruto solve some of the governance questions that Naibe is asking here, We'll walk there and sort some of those governance issues. But what we are saying, Wamunyoro that he tends to be supporting today, as at now, is not eligible to become even the head of a village cattle dip. It can never be, because that was the effect of that impeachment that took place in Parliament and subsequently at the Senate.
Okay.
So what we are saying, we are ready to face them, but let people take responsibility of what they did at the ballot.
You are saying let's all suffer.
Well, that is for Kenyans to decide whether we suffer or not. But of course, we agree that Kenya for some time has been not quite good. But I think we've had this conversation for the longest time, even since independence. But of course, we await to see what is really the problem. Is it the problem? Is it the people or the voters? Or is it the politicians? Because if you ask, I think we've had, most of the politicians, the faces that we have been here since Kanu era. But well, that is a question for another time. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. We have actually looked at Ruto's regime staggering under the broken tax vows, corruption stench, and actually a youth ready to roar again. And then there is the opposition, Gachagua, Kalonzo, Wamalwa, Karua, Natembeya, and Matiang'i circling, now dangling power to Raila. Well, can they topple him? Or will their hunger fracture the fight? Well, we are waiting to see what really will happen and unfold, even as we approach 2027. And as Justice says, as he awaits what Raila will actually say. And of course, Raila right now is actually moving across the country to get to his people to actually understand maybe his stance, where should he actually stand. But of course, this has been a great conversation with me, Eugene Kwach, alongside my two pundits. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, on behalf of everyone who has made this a success, I wish you a very good night. See you next Friday, and have a good night. Wamunyoro.
Everywhere, GBS.